you're not quite sure why.
As you secure the bag.
Sometimes you meet people and realize there's probably a reason why you stayed in touch.
Just listen.
Sometimes all the pieces just come together by themselves.
I'm Jimmy Moyaha.
And I'm Simon Brown.
Welcome to Insider Exchange.
Morning and welcome to another episode of Insider Exchange. It's another Monday, which means we bring you more interesting insights, interesting information, and hopefully make your day a little bit better. No, still not giving them a shout out, but we have changed names and we have got an update on the great ice saga of 2025. It seems as though you can ask for less ice, which is exactly what I did. But on the show today, we're taking a look at some interesting developments in the world of markets. We're taking a look at some insights out of the US. We're going to look at all of the life decisions that Elon Musk has decided to make of late. We're also going to take a look at what is it? It is Liberation Day. We'll make up our own holiday as we go as well, so apparently that's something that we can do. And if we have time, we're going to take a look at some US data points and some South African data points that we might be keen on looking forward to. There is quite an interesting development from a South African perspective that we'll touch on, and that is the future of the VNA. But let's kick things off in an orderly fashion. As I said, this week I am Jim, thanks to a recommendation from our community. Shout out to Jerry who put that recommendation out for us. We tried it. We'll keep trying them. We'll see how they keep going. Simon is Simon, but if you read it too quickly, he might be someone else. You'll see that throughout the show. But let's get into it. Elon, let's start there, I suppose, right? Deciding that he wants to make some major life decisions, move some debt around into some other companies, but at the same time, he's on a clock of sorts. Apparently there is 130 days of office and...
Yeah, so by the rules, and I forget exactly what the rule is, but remember Congress actually runs America. It doesn't appear.
Doesn't look that way, does it?
But and you've got 130 days, and that obviously kicked in on an inauguration day, which was the 20th of Jan. So technically, he's got 130 days in terms of how long he has as in being in charge of Doggy before he has to step aside.
Does the step aside rule apply?
Why wouldn't it?
Well, it doesn't seem to apply in South Africa. I just figured we'd go with it.
I mean, abject of the fact that not much in terms of law seems to apply to the Trump administration. No, and further to that, and we were saying before we went on, for the in crowd, the laws are not a hindrance, but you use them, but you're not bound by them. And for the out crowd, you are bound by them, but don't have access to them. And they're ignoring everything else. And when judges vote against them, they basically say we must impeach the judge. They going in direct defiance of judges and shipping people to El Salvador, etc. So the short answer is no, but technically yes.
George Orwell said it best: "We're all equal."
Yeah, and then so I mean, should he? The numbers he's talking. Also, he's just not getting there. So this is the limitation of a tenure of a special government employee. You only 130 days, and then within a 365-day period, and that's to try and stop. The loophole is, I want you as a something, and I can't get you confirmed or something. It's like, well, then let me just put you in as a special government employee. Well, the close of that loophole is sure, but 130 days in any 360-day period. In other words, in a given year, not necessarily a calendar year, but in a running year. So that's his challenge there. And he's just not funding the money he had hoped to. I mean, they're cutting it by 1 trillion and stuff. The numbers just on Liberation Day on Wednesday, they're going to put 25% on tariffs, and Treasury of Secretary of Treasury stands up and says they're going to make 50 billion revenue. Except for a problem. The value of autos coming across the borders is 100 billion. 25% of that is 25 billion. So it's not 50 billion. And secondly, usually what happens when prices go up is demand goes down. So it's not even 25 billion. I mean, Yeah.
Speaking of Liberation Day and demand and how things are moving, last week, one of the biggest losing days again for the 2025 calendar year on US markets, wiping out more than $1 trillion in valuations. Clearly, this is going very much according to plan, which, interestingly enough, I thought might be the plan. This is something that you and I spoke about. I think it was last week. It was sometime in the morning. We spoke about this, and I said perhaps he's just an evil genius, and
Monday.
this was the plan all along, right? Move liquidity to where you want it to be, get in, and then move the price back up by saying, "Oh, we're rolling back on everything, and everybody can go back to normal."
I hear you on that. I mean, except the S&P is down, 10%? I mean, that's, there are easier ways to move the S&P down 10%. Yeah, about 10 off the highs. I mean, it's a lot. It's an ugly looking chart, but I mean, I don't know. Yes, the conspiracy theory can be they wanted to crash the market a bit, but they want that market down at, I don't know, 3,600. Let's get really exciting and do a proper little collapse and really get things cheap again. It is helping with the overvaluations because it is the only Mag 7 that is outperforming the S&P this year. And to be clear, that means you're negative. You're still outperforming, is Meta. The other 6, the not so Mag 6, are all doing worse than the S&P so far year to date.
So lots happening there, clearly. And even amongst all of this, Elon has other problems he's decided to field. He's decided he wants to move around ownership of X into another company called XAI, which already had an ownership. Why?
Because
why?
XAI has value. I mean, say what you will with Grok. I use Grok. It's perfectly fine. I don't. So what I like with it is when you're on the Twitters, and there's a tweet. So like I saw there's something about Elon 130 days, and I'm like, huh? So I say to Grok, give me some reference for this tweet. And it does. It goes and finds data and shows you links and stuff like that. So yeah, he's got an AI, much as OpenAI and Perplexity and
Everyone has an AI.
Except you and
Let's make one.
well,
Let's
actually,
ask an AI to make an AI for us.
Yo, I'll do that. So I mean, I was running Llama on my MacBook, but then it runs in a code I'm not very good with, so it crashed and I couldn't get it going again because my coding's kind of stuck in C++.
Ask an AI to tell you where your coding went wrong.
Yeah, no, 100%. So that's where the value sits. The value of an X is, I mean, we've said it before. I mean, X is a Nazi porn bar. So it's nowhere near the $44 billion he paid for it. Not even within 100.
I think the valuation on the transfer is around $33 billion.
Well, that's
a valuation.
Yeah, but that's the $45 billion. So he upped the value from 44 to 45, dropped off $12 billion of debt, said $33 billion. I mean, so understand he's the main man what counted both of these companies. He could consult shareholders and boards, or he could just send them a WhatsApp, a signal.
Because that's what he's going to do, consult.
So he's basically in an all-share deal swapped Twitter into XAI, where the value lies, given Twitter shareholders some XAI script, shares rather, or script, and he's probably valued XAI, and I couldn't find out what he valued that part at a couple of $100 billion. So there's not too much dilution happening in that regard. But it does mean that if you were a Twitter shareholder who helped him go private at 44 billion, you're technically not underwater because now you've actually got XAI. I still, and I've said it before in this show, I think that the value in AI, which there undoubtedly is not going to be in the AI companies. It's going to be when you and I launch our own little AI and we don't have to be here. We can be in bed and they can just sort of do a podcast for us. So, that's the real value of it.
That's true. No, that's true. Community out there, please let us know what you think your uses for AI would be. We would potentially start a podcast and then just go sit on a beach. I know Sai loves sitting on beaches and eating good bunny chows, so that could be a use case for us. But until then, you're stuck with us. We're here. We're here every week for your viewing pleasure. I want to look at the interesting dynamic around the transfers and stuff. It's brought up something quite interesting. Is if given the opportunity, and perhaps we'll do this as a deep dive at some point, I can now see that for some people or for some reasons, there's no value in listing a company. Because your Tesla share price is tanking on this side. Your net worth is being absolutely decimated by the public markets, whereas all of your private businesses, your SpaceX, etc., OpenAI, all of those are protected against that negativity,
Well,
technically speaking, because then they're based less on sentiment. There's no sentiment weighing in on that valuation. It's based on, okay, can we do the numbers? What are the projections? What's the discounted cash flows, or whatever it is you're going to base a valuation on. Whereas in the open market, something like a Tesla, in the same way you get benefit on the upside, you could be down 50% at the start of the year because you couldn't find $1 trillion.
I think you're 100% right. And it comes back to, business leaders or company, whatever, CEOs and owners, etc., should be very careful about wading into politics. We saw Ross Perot do it, 30 years ago, but he had unlisted. Tesla's slightly different because SpaceX, it's more difficult to go and protest a rocket in space. A Tesla, you can process easier. But I like your logic. I think there are some folks, and I think it's been a trend. We have, everyone talks about how the JSE's lost half or whatever of their listings in the last couple of decades, and that is true. But that's a global phenomenon, and that phenomenon's been driven by, I think, two things. Very low interest rates, which are gone, but nonetheless they were here, and the rise of private equity and venture capital. What I mean by that, in the old days, to really get your money out of a business, at some point you needed to list it. That was your route to making money. At some point the VCs are like, we're not giving you any more, and now you've got to go to market and we want our return.
Exit, yeah.
Yeah, it was your exit. These days you've got more exit. Private equity can take you. The VCs will run you much longer.
A bigger company can take you.
A bigger company, a sovereign wealth fund might come along and swoop you up. So there's a lot in that. You've now got many more options. I do think that what we're seeing with Tesla will make some CEOs wonder. And yes, Elon is to the extreme of the process, but it is going to maybe make some CEOs think, why do we go to capital markets? To raise money. That's the short answer. And if you can raise money somewhere else, and then it's a nice way to do staff incentives and that sort of thing. But it's the capital raising. If you can raise elsewhere,
yeah. Why? I mean, look at ARK. They've taken the decision to delist as a result of the fact that that discount isn't narrowing, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Remgro did it too. I spoke to the Remgro executives around that, but obviously that's a story for another day. I just want to take a quick pause here before we wrap up Market Matters to say to one member of our community, how dare you doubt us, Mox? We're giving you a shout out for the sole reason that you doubt that we are live. We love you, we really do, but of course we're live. We won't promise you live things and then not show up when you need us most. That's not the kind of people we are. Probably why we're not government employees. Another very interesting thought from James. Jimbo says, maybe one day we can have AI as a third or fourth guest on the show, on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I think that could be worth trying.
So there's a podcast I was listening to, and I forget what it was called. I'll find it in a second. What they do is they do exactly that. So they use... So it requires a lot of editing at this point because there's no sort of simple, smooth way of doing it. The AI responses aren't quick enough, etc. But what they do is they would use, for example, Perplexity or whoever. They would then create a character, and then they would run it through the 11 Labs peeps who do the audio part. And in essence, they would be able to have a AI as a third guest, or in fact, at some points, they got two AIs as two guests, and they stepped away.
We're going to try that at some point. One day we will see
it. It requires a lot of edit. So at this point, it still requires editing.
Okay.
Eventually that will fall away, right? Because it'll AI for humans is the podcast.
AI for humans. Okay.
And AI will get, it's the latency issue. So you edit out the latency and then you're good to go.
Oh, there we go. We'll keep looking into the use cases for AI. Again, let us know what your use cases are or what you would use it for. If you have something that perhaps comes to mind when you think about what would make your life easier through the advent of AI, let us know. Put it in the comments. Let us know in the community. Join the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Before we wrap up Market Matters, the V&A, probably the most successful shopping mall. I don't want to call it a mall, but shopping mall. Precinct. There we go. Shopping precinct on the African continent. Certainly
one of the best in the world.
One of Growthpoint's best assets, if not their best asset. Definitely their best asset. Making some changes. They are going to be introducing a new luxury section, as if it wasn't enough.
Whoa, hang on. Like what? like
Dolce & Gabbana, LVMH's Louis Vuitton, Kering's Gucci. they're all going to now anchor the new retail development that the VNA is working on. Remember, they're expanding the VNA along that
Granger
coastline.
Bay.
Yeah. So now it looks as though we're going to get, I can't even call it a diamond walk, really, but I know that they've had a Gucci store in the VNA waterfront already.
Yes.
So I want to
There's
know.
that whole bunch down at the end.
Yes,
on the
right
upper-
at the end, just before the Table Bay, right? But I suppose now with the Table Bay renovations happening, they might want to move things around and look at putting it in a different place. I don't really know. But that's what's happening from a VNA perspective. Certainly a very clear sign that, hey, if you've got money, you've got money, eh? If you've got money.
No, absolutely, and it works. So, I mean, we see it in Santon, the Diamond Mart here, where peeps come and will come. They will come in from different parts, particularly of the rest of the continent, to shop at the Diamond Mart. You see in outside Cartier and stuff in Paris, a lot of Asian folks who basically fly in, because in China you've got giant queues and you've got them there as well. But folks will fly in from Asia into Paris to buy their fancy stuff. Why not do the same in Cape Town?
Talk about a different tax bracket, eh?
Yeah, I mean,
Talk about a different
fundamentally,
tax
yes,
bracket.
yes, different tax bracket.
Those in our community that are in that said tax bracket, let us know if you are looking forward to this. Let us know if it's a place you want to go to, if you would enjoy a new, I don't know, Diamond Walk-ish setup in Cape Town. I mean, clearly.
So I enjoy it. They're fun to do, but like keep your hands in your pocket and walk in the middle, hey? Because like you make a mistake there and you are dead. Just saying.
But it could be an interesting thing as well, because I think even with what you're seeing in Santon, as you said, people fly to different places to access different things, right? Luxury isn't done the way it's done in Europe, in Africa yet, right? And I say that because you look at the size of things. Take Harrods in London, for example. That is...
Yeah.
I've walked through Harrods, and you are very right. So I kept my hands in my pockets and stayed as far away from things that could be breakable as humanly possible. But it's not to say that luxury is not growing in Africa. It's not to say that appetite isn't growing. It's certainly growing here. And perhaps that's what someone like the VNA might be looking at. Perhaps that's what they're seeing, is to say we're seeing increasing number of tourists coming to South Africa, and particularly Cape Town, and that attractive destination in Cape Town certainly is not Canal Walk if compared to the VNA. I mean, if you put the two of them, if you put the two of them together, Canal Walk, there's nothing wrong with Canal Walk. It's a very nice kind of mall to walk through, I'm sure. But when you put the two of them together and you look at where Aston Martin has decided to put their dealership, where Daytona has decided to put their dealership, it's not near Canal Walk.
Yeah. So Canal Walk, top tip, go to Canal Walk, but don't go to Canal Walk, go to Long Walk to Freedom just next door. Awesome. I agreed with you. And it is, I mean, it comes back to luxury. I mean, the proper luxury, the folks who are flying in to buy things, etc. I mean, in tough times, they get hurt a bit, but the real top end of luxury is like that. They're so rich, they never poor.
Those are the ones that buy the piece of land in Clifton at 100+ million rand.
And then knock it down.
No, it was a piece of land. It had nothing on it to knock down, but paid more than 100 million rand for it. It was on Property 24 at some point. I think it was listed at about 130 odd million rand. Came back, had a sold sign next to it. Yeah, no, look, I didn't say I intended to buy it, okay? I was just looking. So, but yes, it's a very telling sign. At the top end, it doesn't really matter. And perhaps this is what that top end wants. They want exactly this.
Yeah, and that's why you own some Richmond.
That's it.
Or race.
Unfortunately, we have come to the end of Market Matters. I'm going to leave on a rather unfortunate note, right? This is a new problem. Is paper straws. I can now see the logic behind why Donald Trump decided to sign an executive order. They're not practical. Not for this conversation, perhaps for an unfiltered opinion. But we're going to leave Market Matters on this note. Shout out to everybody that joined the community. Thanks so much to our TikTok community. You guys are awesome. The commentary that we've been getting on the multi-choice video, on the credit score videos, on all our content, really, you guys are absolutely amazing. And we do what we do for you. Shout out to our YouTube community for joining on the live stream. Thanks for sharing the journey with us. Thanks for joining the conversation. Remember, if you've got questions, pop them through. If you've got comments, pop them through. We'll see if we can get to them. Until next time, that's been Market Matters. We're going to get into the deep dive now, and we're going to be diving into consolidation, debt consolidation, and potentially how to pay down your debt quicker. So tune in for that. That's going to be released later in the week. But for now, this is Market Matters, and we're going to leave it on that note.